Oh, shit.
We'll get started in a few more minutes, guys.
Okay, Liz is going to join us in a minute.
No.
Hi, everyone. We'll be starting in 1 more minute. Thank you.
Okay, Mark, it's
All
6.
right.
You can do your introduction. You know, I'm the timekeeper.
Yes. Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us this evening. Before we get started, I'd like to call on Carrie Harris, Miss Carrie Harris, to talk a little bit about some housekeeping.
Thanks, Mark. Good evening, everyone, and thank you all for joining us today. Before we all get started, can everybody please mute your phones so we're not interrupted if you're unmuted, as well as if you would like to ask a question, please use the chat box below and send all questions directly to me. Also, we're going to keep you muted. If you need to unmute you, we will unmute you, I'm sorry, when it's your turn to answer a question. Thanks.
Thanks, Carrie. So welcome and thank you everyone for joining us today. I see we have some families from Puerto Rico and Toronto. Welcome from afar. Before we get started, I usually welcome our schools and thank them for coming down to New York, but I will still thank them for joining us today on this Zoom session. So thanks again. So my name is Mark Chung, and I'm the co-founder and president of Inspiring Young Minds. Like most of you here today, boarding school was the furthest thing from me and my wife's mind 16 years ago. when our son Mark Jr. got an opportunity to go to a boarding school. IYM was formed because we wanted to give the same opportunity to other families like yourselves. My wife and I approached this process with an open mind, and I can tell you, we never regretted our decision to send Mark Jr. to a boarding school. Boarding school has been a life-changing experience for our family and so many other families. There are many benefits that you will learn about today. It is what drives us and our board members and counselors to do what we do. Over the last 16 years, IYM has placed over 600 students into some of the most prestigious boarding schools in the nation. 4 of them are here today. You will learn a lot about their schools and about boarding school community. They hope to answer all your concerns and questions. If you're interested in moving forward in this process with the help of IYM, please visit our website and at inspiringyoungminds.org and click on the IYM Prep Scholar application. You will also see it in the chat room. Kerry will be placing that. I would like to call on the schools to briefly introduce themselves. We will start with the ladies first. So, Lauren.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Lauren Lewis. I am the Director of Access and Inclusion and Senior Associate Director of Enrollment at Foxcroft School. We are located in Middleburg, Virginia, serving 175 girls, and we are boarding and day. Thank you for being here, and I look forward to sharing more about Foxcroft.
Thanks, Lauren. Liz.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Liz Stewart. I'm the Senior Associate Director of Admission at the Loomis Chaffee School. Loomis Chaffee is located in Windsor, Connecticut, about 2 hours from New York. And we're a school of 730 students.
Thank you, Liz. Bill.
Good evening, everyone. Hope you can hear me. My name is Bill Casson. I am the Associate Director of Admissions and head basketball coach at Trinity Pauling School. Trinity Pauling is an all-boys school located about 70 miles north of New York City, right on the Connecticut-New York line. And I look forward to being available to answer any questions you all have about the boarding school world.
Thank you, Bill. Naheem?
Good evening, everyone. I'm so happy to be here this evening with you all. I'm actually broadcasting virtually from our library here on the campus of Phillips Exeter Academy. Exeter, as it's also known as, is a residential boarding school, co-ed boarding school of 1,080 students. My name is Nain Jorge. I'm Associate Director of Admissions and the Director of Multicultural Outreach on campus. And I look forward to connecting with you all tonight. Thank you.
Thanks, Nahin. I'd like to introduce our moderator tonight is Kurt Flanger. Kurt?
Thank you, Mark. And I'd like to welcome all of our families and thank the reps from the schools for taking the time to be with us tonight. Like Mark, a few years back, was sitting in this same place, and my wife dragged me kicking and screaming to look at boarding school, where I thought only troubled children went or the children of the ultra privileged. I had an absolute education in the process, and since then have joined the board at IYM in the hopes that we can present this opportunity to a lot of other families. We're in an unusual period of time, to say the least, right now. You know, we are looking at 3 social upheavals, the likes of which most of us have never seen, maybe have read about. We have COVID-19 pandemic, which is akin to what happened in 1918. We have the social, racial upheaval after the killing of George Floyd, that's kind of equivalent to 1968. And on top of that, we have the economic calamity that the pandemic has wrought. So it's a really unusual time. So let me start by at least addressing, I think, a concern that's sitting foremost in a lot of parents' minds, And I'm going to ask this, let's start with Liz. How are you guys dealing with COVID-19? Are you planning on bringing students back, et cetera? Because I think a lot of parents are afraid, oh my God, I'm going to send my kids to school now?
Sure. So I will say that I think every school is handling this in different ways that I think works best for each individual institution. And so I can speak only from what Loomis is doing, which I think is a little bit different right now than some of our peer schools. So we just announced last week that we actually are going to have our boarders start the remote learning from their homes. And not come to campus to quarantine. So they will do, for this year, we have 6 5-week modules instead of 3 trimesters. And those modules, the first 5 weeks, the very first one, fall term 1, our boarders will work from home. And those that live locally as boarders certainly can commute as day students for the time being. And then we will slowly phase students back into the dorms after the first 5 weeks. And the reason being is that it's based on testing. The testing turnaround for results is just not happening fast enough to ensure that everyone can be safe and healthy. And even though we want our students back on campus as soon as possible, the safety and the health has to be paramount. So for the first few weeks, our students we're working from their homes. We want to make sure that everyone has what they need to be successful in the classroom. This summer, we did a lot of outreach to all of our new students to do some orientation programming and some advising and some mentoring, again, to sort of prepare them for a variety of situations we couldn't really figure out just yet, or in June, what August is going to look like and now what September will look like. So that's how we'll open up the school year, with hopes that we can return everybody to campus in a healthy, safe way. But every teacher must be tested in advance of their arrival to campus. Anyone that works in any office has to be tested, et cetera. So we have a lot of safety measures in place in the dorms when the students return, in the dining hall when students are in the dining hall, et cetera. So temperature checks and things like that. But the testing just is not happening fast enough for us to feel that we can get everyone here safely based on what we're learning about through our colleges that are opening up and not being able to get results faster. So that's where we stand for right now.
And let me turn to you, Bill, real quickly. How are you guys handling COVID-19, and are you coming back in person?
Yeah, I think I would like to address the question in a couple of ways, Kurt, if you don't mind. One is, yes, there is the reality of what's happening in September that we're going into now, but there's also the optimism, when I'm the eternal optimist. The optimism is that by the time our families that are looking at us for boarding schools, by the time next year rolls around, I'm hopeful and pray that we'll be back to somewhat of a new normal, where schools like Loomis and Trinity Pauling and Exeter and will be back to bringing kids on campus regularly and pretty much having a normal boarding school experience. So I think our families are in a good situation in that sense. But I'm not naive enough to know that there is a possibility that we could be looking at the same thing this time next year. And Trinity Pauling is making every effort to open up with in-class learning. We're bringing kids back from our international kids and our kids from hotspots are quarantining on campus, or they have the option to quarantine on campus. Certainly, we're making all these adjustments with dorm rooms. Making sure social distancing is respected in the dorm rooms, with maybe only single rooms being offered this year, and then obviously dining schedules are going to be altered. We're not playing competitive sports in the fall, but we are trying to do sports-specific training in the fall, and we're hopeful that being a boarding school that's 75% boarding, we can create a little bit of a bubble. And just keep our fingers crossed that we will be able to move forward. If we do run into issues, we've got things in place to get students off campus, so they're not infecting everyone else, and then welcoming back once they've successfully quarantined. And if things get too crazy, then we'll move to strictly online learning. But right now, we're planning on opening. I wouldn't say business as usual, but we're planning on opening. In the next couple of weeks.
Great, thank you. Naheem, let me turn to you for just a second. how is all of this going to affect the admissions process? We're looking at a bunch of our families here who are looking at boarding school and want to reach out to you, and with ideal world, they'd come see that big, beautiful campus of yours, which I doubt is going to happen this year. So how are you dealing with the admissions process?
Well, thanks, Kurt, for the question. This certainly is going to be an interesting year for our admissions offices in trying to connect with our families and students. Many of our offices, including Exeter, we have moved our season into a virtual sessions that we will be offering throughout the fall. So I think when in thinking about connecting with students and families, we will be offering online webinars to talk about the experience on campus for our families, and we will also have the opportunity to set up smaller chats with around 20 to 40 families in a Zoom setting, so you can meet with our students and chat with an admissions officer and get all your questions answered, just so you feel comfortable and ready to go through the process. In addition to those sessions, we are going to be having individualized sessions to talk about financial aid, athletics, diversity, equity, and inclusion, all major topics that are important for families to consider as they're looking at different schools. And so there will be individualized sessions to provide this opportunity. While we are not offering on-campus tours, unfortunately, we will be interviewing online. And so our portals are open. All you have to do is come to our website and schedule yourself for an interview slot for next year. And the application and the test will also be conducted online as well.
Okay, great. Lauren, let me turn to you real quickly. The other major upheaval we're having is over race, justice, equity, et cetera. And I'll just throw in a little editorializing. I have a son and a daughter who graduated from Lawrenceville. And I saw that diversity is one of those things that is somewhat easy to overcome. You can bring people in from diverse backgrounds, but inclusion is really hard. And I think that's what we're seeing. What are you doing at your school? And can you speak to the boarding school process in general? How are kids of color being included into the central mission of your school?
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Kurt. That's a great question. So to your point, diversity is very important. So I like to use the analogy of going to an event. So you can go to the event and you can have lots of different people at the event, but if you are not included in the conversation, if you don't feel like you're being seen or welcomed, then that means that you're not being included. So in addition to the inclusion piece, I also like to add welcoming as well, and belonging. So with at Foxcroft, just like with a lot of boarding schools that have experience with the civil unrest in our country, we've really had to do a lot of internal work, inwardly and outwardly. So we've already had some things in place when it came to our families. So for instance, with the admissions process, making sure that it is transparent, right? So making sure that families know how to access the application, know how to, access recommendation letters. Sometimes we've had to streamline that. So for some reason, if families are, since we are a small school and we're a small office, say for instance, if a family is unable to contact an English teacher, we will just say, hey, if you have the recommendation letter or the email for the English teacher, we can be able to send that recommendation letter, because we know that it's a stressful time and we want to make sure that it's easy for our families. Next year, we're actually moving to test optional. Because we understand, we know that access is very important, and knowing that, yes, there is testing that's available and it's looking differently for everyone, we want to make sure that the admissions process is equitable. So we have moved to test optional. If families want to go ahead and submit the test, great. But if they do not, then that's fine too. We are also, offering virtual components as well, but we're also offering individual tours. So if families want to, if they're interested in coming to visit campus, and they can be able to do that. So that's with the admissions process. As far as retention, retention is very important to us. So there's been a creation of a few things. One is our BIPOC, and if you're not familiar with the term BIPOC, it's Black, Indigenous, People of Color. So we have a BIPOC support group for students, and we will also start a BIPOC group for parents, because we understand that's very, very important for parents, in addition to our parent association. We also have lots of clubs and groups that are available, looking at curriculum, and just ensuring that when families come to campus, that, as I mentioned before, that they are included, that they are welcomed, and that they belong. So that kind of gives you just a highlight and overview of the admissions process, but then also the retention piece, because that's very important with retaining our students, because we want to ensure that their life here at Foxcroft, as I'm sure as my other colleagues on the panel, we want to ensure that our students are set up for success, not only for the school, but then also beyond the school, college and beyond.
Great. Liz, let me turn to you real quickly on the other thing that I mentioned, which is the economic upheaval. In a good year, people looking at the sticker price of a boarding school education usually faint. And now people are really struggling. So can you talk a little bit about the financial aid process, what's available, and how a parent goes about doing that?
Sure. So obviously, you're right. It's not cheap to attend institutions like Loomis and Exeter, Foxcroft, TP, et cetera. Definitely not. I am a product of boarding school. There's no way I could have attended the school I went to without financial assistance. So I know what it means to have an education that I received from my boarding school experience, and what a gift it was that the money was available for me to attend the school that I attended. So financial aid works in addition to the application process. There's also a financial aid process that kind of coincides with that process. Typically, schools' annual financial aid budgets are arranged. So you should ask each school that you're applying to, like, what is your, how much do you allocate a year? For example, Loomis, a little over 34% of our students receive financial aid. It's all need-based. It's all grants. There are no loans that you have to pay back. And we will roughly allocate a little over $10 million every year, to families. And it runs, again, it's based on the need of a family. So if your need is you need 100% assistance, we want to make sure that's doable, because we want to give every student access to an opportunity like this. So we don't want money to get in the way of that access, of that opportunity. And it extends beyond just the financial aid award of covering tuition, room, and board. It's talking about opportunities to study abroad, even while you're at our school. So maybe you want to spend a semester or a year in China or Rome, in Italy, or, et cetera. So France. So you have this opportunity to take advantage of any opportunity our schools provide, regardless of your financial situation, or what you can or cannot, provide towards costs. We want to defray those costs. So it's not just about the bottom line of how much is it to attend our schools. It's also just giving access by the monies that we do have. All our schools believe in wanting to give every kind of student from every kind of background and demographic an opportunity to experience this transformational world. I am definitely who I am today because of those 4 years of boarding school. And doing what I do and working in boarding schools is because of those 4 years. But the money part is important. We want it to not be a worry on families' minds that they have to worry about how to pay towards tuition, but also pay bills. So we want to make sure that is something for everybody to do. So I don't know if any of my colleagues want to add any more to the answer, but that's sort of my general sense. The deadline and things like that, the format is it's all online. All our schools post sort of a checklist of what you need to do. And then obviously Mark will help families as well a little bit with this process and guide you through it. But basically we ask for tax returns, and we're asking for you to fill out some more information about other siblings in schools and things like that. So it's kind of similar to the college process, but at an independent school level. And they use a program or a company called SSS, Student and School Services. And so again, all our schools will have a sort of a checklist and links to get through that, and Mark will help you with that as well. But we want to make it as easy and accessible as possible. That includes things like fee waivers and things like that.
No, that's fantastic. Let me toss it out to any of the other, does anybody else want to throw in anything particular about their school? Naheem, go ahead.
No, not about my school. I just wanted to add that we understand with these economic times that there are going to be changes in families' financial situation. And that's why we ask families for every year for them to fill out that financial aid application. That way we are aware, should there be any big changes in the family circumstance where we have to allocate more financial aid to a certain family, we can certainly make those changes. So it's not like you're set based on financial situation in one year. We understand that it will change with certain families, and we're willing and ready to support families in those sort of situations.
Okay, Bill and Lauren, do you want to throw anything else, or because I'd like to turn to the two of you first of all. Let me just say one thing about this as an IYM person. I'm serious. When you look at that sticker price, it can be shocking. Don't let that, I'm speaking to the parents now, don't let that dissuade you from applying to boarding school. Apply first. We will work with you to find a way to pay for it. Working with the schools, we will get you a way to pay for it. The financial aid application does ask for a lot of personal information, and at IYM, the only person who's going to see your personal information is Mark. And Mark really understands this and has a tremendous working relationships with our schools. And so if you're interested in boarding school, I know this sounds strange, but probably economics is the last thing you should be thinking about up front. So let me turn to Lauren and Bill. Bill, I'll start with you real quickly. We have a unique opportunity because we have two single-sex education schools here. And so can you talk a little bit about the differences and the advantages you see in single-sex education for boys, and then Lauren for girls?
Well, as we probably know, boys learn differently than girls. Academically, when you get to the high school years, the boys, our brains are wired differently than the girls are. Academically, they're a little more mature, and obviously, an adolescent boy is easily distracted, and so these are things that if the girls are not in the classroom, there's things that you don't have to worry about, and you're allowed to focus. Boys learn best by putting their hands on things. So the curriculum in a single-sex school, like a boys' school, like Trinity Pauling, has a lot of opportunities for hands-on. We're doing project-based learning, which is a lot of schools are turning to that, but it really speaks to the way boys learn by movement, putting your hands on things. And I think taking the distraction away, you kind of can learn at the speed that your boys naturally learn at a certain speed. So you kind of learn that way without those distractions. And it gives you the opportunity to mature and develop, which would get you at an even pace with girls by the time you get to college. When you get to college, girls are ahead of us, as we all know. And what boys' schools do is it kind of takes that gap and it makes it shorter because you've had an opportunity to learn the way you learn. And also, the other advantage about a boys' school in specific is you can, once you're there, you realize that it's a very inclusive environment. Boys don't really care about where you're from, what you do, car you drive and things like that. Boys don't care about that. They just want to know this kind of sense of brotherhood and feeling that they belong. And I think a boys' school does that very well. And it also gives you that comfort zone, that feeling that you can step out of your comfort zone. You may walk into a prep school and think you're a certain thing. I'm an athlete, and that's all I want to do is focus on my sport. But then when you kind of take the girls out of the equation, it tends to open a boy's mind up a little bit more and maybe try something different because they're not worried about, is that cute girl in algebra class going to giggle at me because I raised my hand and make me feel inferior to the point where I'll never raise my hand again in the rest of my life. So those things are taken out of the equation. And any single sex school, we're not monasteries. We have interaction. We offer opportunities to have social interactions with other types of schools, whether they be girls' schools, other schools like Trinity Pauling, or co-ed schools. So we do open up our campus, and I know other people open up their campuses to allow for that kind of interaction. So, obviously I'm biased about it. I've been at TP for a while, so I see the way it kind of works for boys and how they develop. And, it's a feeling when you look at these schools. Not everybody needs an all boys or an all girls school. Some adolescent kids, some kids will do well no matter where you put them. And some kids, absolutely can definitely benefit from single sex. And some kids can go either way. So it's just, again, it's a feeling of how you approach this.
Great, thanks. And Lauren, I saw you shaking your head. So what's the difference and what's similar to what Bill said for a girls' school?
Yeah, yes, I was shaking my head because there are several similarities, but then there are some differences. So I've had the pleasure of working at both co-ed and single-sex schools. So this is actually my first single-sex school. So I've had the opportunity and the experience of working at the schools, different schools. So to highlight the similarities, yes, you will have social interaction. I get that all the time with girls, and some of them that are on the fence when they apply, especially given that we are somewhat in a rural environment. They'll say, well, wait a minute, am I just going to be around my peers and my friends all the time? Like, will I have interaction with other girls at other schools or other boys? And I was like, no, don't worry. Yes, you will have interaction and that social piece with other schools. I would also say that with our girls, they are leaders from the beginning. They're not waiting until their junior year, their senior year to become leaders. I would want to go, for Foxcroft, we really are about mission. And I'm pretty sure all of my colleagues on the panel are all about mission, but especially for all girls schools, it really starts with the mission. And for our mission, it's about girls finding their voice and using that voice for good, and being able to share that throughout their time at Foxcroft as well as beyond. So we're really big on mission. We push that mission, and we instill that mission into our girls from the beginning. So, if a girl wants to, similar to what Bill said, if a girl wants to come in and explore different areas, then, attending maybe a co-ed school, then they can be able to do that. So for instance, we offer STEM, we offer animal science, we offer writing, we also offer the arts, as far as with concentrations, academic concentrations. And girls can be themselves. Sometimes, again, as Bill mentioned, every boys' school is very different, right? Every girls' school is very different. Same thing with every co-ed school is very different. So it's all about the feeling. You want to be able to go on the campus and say, you know what, this is a good fit for me. I actually had an opportunity to speak with a young lady today, and she said she actually had a co-ed school that she's applying to, and she's also applying to 2 other girls' schools. And she said, all girls' schools were like not my jam, but I am keeping an open mind because I know that I'm not getting distractions from boys, and I know that I can be myself and I can be able to do the work after school, but then I can also push myself and to be better. And I know that Foxcroft can be able to help me with that. It's like, oh, there we go. I'm sold. So it has been, it's just been just a sight to see our girls. And sometimes I have to remember that girls that came in last year as a freshman, I have to remind myself like, oh, they're freshmen and they're not seniors or they're not juniors. And I think sometimes when you're when you're in co-ed spaces, sometimes that light is dimmed a little bit. So again, girls can be able to explore themselves. I will leave you all with one story. We have a young lady who is Black, and she was on our database. We use a database, and with technological terms, there is a word that's called owner, right? And she was kind of taken back because she was like, wait a minute, owner has like a negative context to it. So my head of school suggested for her to write a letter to this organization, which she did, along with our director of technology. And those 2 letters were sent off to this organization that we're using. And the gentleman did explain about the technical terms, but he also copied the president of this company and said, you know what, we're taking what you're saying into consideration and we're going to look for changes. But kudos to you for being a junior and speaking up, because you're making changes and you are a trailblazer for that. So that's a win for us. And it was a proud mama moment, as you could say. So that, honestly, with the schools that I've worked at, I did not see that. And with being at a girls' school, being able to be pushed to do that, and given the kind of like the stamp of approval, even from the head of schools, like, no, you should do this. If you see a problem, then you need to address it. So yes, it was a very proud moment. So Foxcroft is an amazing place, and that's I would say the advantage of being at a all girls school. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. I'd like to turn to our students on our panel now, because we have a bunch of prospective students here, and maybe you can speak to them. Let's start with you, Matt. You're in college now. You went to junior boarding school. You went to boarding school. You're now a sophomore in college. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Can you think back to where you were before you applied to school? Why did you pick a boarding school, and what were you thinking that summer before you went to school?
Right. So my oldest brother actually went to the master's school in Dobbs Ferry, New York. So my parents had a little bit of knowledge coming into sending me away. And my middle brother, he went to the high school in our town, and I was also at the middle school in our town, and we found that our school district just wasn't challenging enough for my future, and wasn't going to support what I wanted to do and what they wanted for me in my education. And so we looked at rectory, and luckily I was able to do 2 summer sessions before, 2 4-week summer sessions before starting a full semester at rectory, in the middle of like this small cozy corner in Connecticut. And so that's what really prepared me. But also that
somebody pick up and put in the car.
Also that summer before I went away, even though they send you like the list of things you should have like prepared and like things you should bring with you, I say that there's no real way to prepare, because it's just such a life-changing like moment, being away from your parents for the first time. It's a little bit scary at times, and with time, as you grow with your boarding school experience, I'd say it becomes a lot easier. But and I found that even as I went on, I kind of missed being at school, even like more than being homesick. So.
Great, thanks. Thank you, Matt. Tashawn, can I turn to you for a moment? You are currently in boarding school. What was your thought process going to school, and how was the transition from home to boarding school?
That summer before, I was really excited. I was packing up my room. I think I packed more than I could bring, but made it fit. And when I got to school, it was the first couple of weeks, it was mostly bonding with your roommates, your suite mates, and everyone in your grade. It was like nonstop orientation with your grade. You were really getting to know who they were, because these are the people you're going to be living with for the rest of the year and probably for the next 4 years. And so that transition, you also got an advisor to help you if you had any issues. And also you'd be bonding with your teachers as you went along because you'd also be living with some of them. So my transition, it was really fun, and I found that one person or those couple adults that really spoke to me, and I just stuck with them for the rest of the school year and for the rest of my whole time there. Like, these were my go-to people if I ever needed anything or was having any problems. They were my go-to people.
And let me ask you, did you have any moments when you were homesick where you doubted your decision to go to boarding school?
Yes, I did have those moments. And then that's the time, like times like that, you have to really reach out to the people that are around you and try to figure out, okay, and talk to them and say, I'm feeling this way. And I'd have a couple of those be like, oh, do you want to go to XYZ? Like, do you want some home cooked meals? Do you want to go to your favorite restaurant? And just doing activities that make you happy to take your mind off of it. Or like thinking about when's the next break coming, like to look forward to. Like, I look forward to going home to eating some of my grandmother's XYZ, like stuff like that. It really helps your homesickness.
Right. Let's turn to our parents also, because we have a lot of parents here are thinking expectantly about sending their kids to boarding school. And Jackie, let me ask you, since you yourself went to boarding school and then convinced your daughter to go to boarding school, what was your thought process as a parent as you were sitting there that summer before you were getting ready to have Camille prepare for school? But Jackie, can you go ahead and unmute yourself?
I can unmute myself. Okay, there we go. There we go. So the question is, what did I think about sending her off to boarding school? I went to the master's school, first of all. And let me tell you, it's the 4 best years of my life. And the reason I say that is because I was in a public school in Bushwick, in Brooklyn. And that was a tough thing. It was really difficult because I was an immigrant child. I'd come from the Caribbean. I was very smart. I didn't fit in. The educational system in Brooklyn wasn't that great. So I really wanted my daughter to experience prep school. Of course, she got into master's and decided it wasn't for her. But I knew that my experience at master's, which then led me to Wesleyan University in Middletown, Connecticut, which then led me on to my master's and led me to my career on Wall Street, really solidified my education. I was able to walk. I love the fact I was able to walk between 2 worlds. I was this prep school kid that went to master's, but I also went home to Bushwick, Brooklyn, and could hang with the best of them. So with me, it was great to go to boarding school because I had this great education, but I wanted my daughter to be able to have that, to meet all sorts of friends. My friends from prep school are still my friends today. One of my closest friends is a doctor in Grenada and runs the university, the medical school down there. Went to prep school with her. We are still close today. It was single sex when I went to master's. So it was all girls. Yeah, girls. It was girl power all the way. And I really believe that my daughter would really flourish in that environment and flourish. She ended up going to George School and just graduated class of 2020. It was the best thing I ever did. She had a fantastic time, great relationships. Just dropped her off for her freshman year in college. So I wanted her to have that experience, not only the education, but the relationships, the diversity, understanding people from various economic standards. I think that's what allowed me to walk the walk in Wall Street. I could hold my own with the best of them in a boardroom, but I could also be the girl from Brooklyn. So kudos to boarding school.
Great. Trinity, can I turn back to you for just a second? One of the things that I think a lot of people are asking is, what is life like in a boarding school? Can you describe your day and what a full day looks like in school for you?
Yes, I can. That is a very good question. So starting from the first thing that you do is wake up. So as a freshman this year, you have breakfast check-in. So you want to make sure you check in on time. Then after that, you have classes, and you have 4 periods a day. If you're lucky, you can have a free block. Each block is 1 hour and 15 minutes, so that's a good amount of time. And a lot of people would say that's a really long time for, just for one class, but I honestly really love it. I get to it's a really good experience to like have that amount of time, because normally you would have a 40-minute class, but you get to learn a lot within that hour and 15 minutes. Then after your 4 blocks, which which is 320, you have sports at 3:45. And I remember the first day, I had volleyball practice and I was freaking out because I did not think I could get there in 20 minutes, but I did. So that was good. But after that, you have dinner. Once dinner is done, you have study hall. And study hall is a 2-hour period. It is 7:45 to 9:45. And coming from a person who this year her planning skills have gotten so much better, study hall is a 2-hour block where it is very, very helpful and useful. That's the 2-hour block where you get a lot of your homework done, the majority of your homework done, and that is time where you need to actually focus. And then once study hall is over, 10:30 is lights out, and the whole day repeats again the next day.
So not a lot of time to get in trouble.
No, not really. not at all.
Great. Let me turn to your parents real quickly, because I want to ask, the other thing is, because I know I thought about this, how can I send my baby away? Am I going to miss them? How often do you guys get to see Trinity? And how often do you get to go see her up at Loomis? And how often is she at home? Oh, can you guys unmute yourself if you would, please? Thanks.
Okay, here we go. So we see Trinity obviously on the holidays. That's the primary time, but also because she's only 2 hours away, we get to see her if we, have an opportunity. We can shoot up there for the weekend, to see her for a day. Sometimes she's also available to come home when she's not busy, because it is chock full of busy, their schedule there, and is all in a very good way. Yeah, but we also go up to catch some of her games. Also, too, it's really nice when some of her games are more closer to the city and we get a chance to see her then. But yeah, you wouldn't think that you would be able to see them as often as you can, especially because, again, she's like 2 hours away. But we make it happen. We make it happen. Not a lot of time to miss each other.
And how often do you guys get a chance to speak with each other on the phone, kind of in a typical week?
That's difficult because for whatever reason, Wi-Fi signals are not great on campus. So it's a lot of text. And then, during the weekend, if she's out on campus and stuff, it's a little bit better there. And so we'll speak then. But, sometimes I have to press her in those text messages, because as a mom, you need to hear their voice sometimes to really know, you're saying you're okay, but I need to hear, are you really okay? But again, we make do. So during the course of a week, I'm texting her at least 3 times a week, and hopefully we speak a few times a week, but it's definitely more text.
Kurt, if I can, I want to jump in really quick.
Sure.
To just add on to a piece of one of your earlier questions about sending your baby away to boarding school. I spent a large part of my time working as a security professional, so I had the grand opportunity to see the worst in people sometimes, and it was a challenge. It was a challenge for me personally to come to the decision that this is the best thing that we need to do. But working with Mark, working with the schools. At the time, we were talking to many different schools, and then finally deciding to go to Loomis, and then, finding people there to be an anchor for you, to answer your questions, to reach out to you proactively when things are not right, or when things are going to be due next week, or many different things. Exactly. I mean, it's The boarding school community is an extension of your family in many, many ways. And I just wanted to drive that point home that, you know, through these conversations, they made me feel okay with it. And this is after now, this is already after her older brother had already been to boarding school. But this is our firstborn baby girl. And sometimes it's just different. It's just different for your girl and to release them into the wilderness, which is Loomis Chafee School. You know, but no, they really took the edge off, and you know, just meeting the people, and she was happy to do it, and yeah.
Best choice.
Talk about what makes you uncomfortable, and I'll show you 10,000 people that have lived through it, and they'll be happy to share their stories with you. Whatever you're feeling, speak with Mark, speak with some of these guys, and they'll let you know exactly what you need to know.
Great, thank you very much. That's perfect. Naheen, can I turn back to you for just a minute? Boarding school and prep school is significantly more work than a lot of schools that kids come from, where they've all been top of their class. So if you were talking to an incoming student or somebody who wants to prepare themselves to be ready to do the work, what advice would you give somebody for summer preparation, or exactly how you prepare yourself for boarding school?
That's a great question. I think this applies to many boarding schools for students as they start preparing. It's going to be a big change academically. I think our students will love our schools because they're going to be challenged for some for the first time. And I always joke that our schools are going to introduce students to a wide range of different letters beyond in the alphabet, beyond just an A. And so we're going to challenge students with different classes and different materials. But I think at the core of the experiences at our schools, students have to be ready to contribute, to come to their class, ready to engage in conversation and discuss some of the material that they're studying. And so in order to prepare for class, you have to have good, strong time management, making sure that you're spending enough time on your assignments, keeping a good schedule for all your different activities that you're involved with, including clubs and classwork. Also, just in terms of the finding a support system in those classes is also really helpful. Finding a study group to meet outside, to connect with some ideas, to finding students in the dormitory will also help with the academic transition. At Exeter, we have a vertical housing system, so grades 9 through 12 are living together in that same dorm. So when you're having some challenges, you can go down the hallway and connect with an older student to guide you and assist you through those challenges in your classes. And so that allows for students to build mentorship and leadership in that space, and prepare students to learn how to be successful or learn how to ask for help. Teachers at boarding schools are there. They're living with you in the dormitories. You can find them on campus. And that's the great thing about it, is that you're building these relationships with them. They know when you're not having the best of days. But what I always recommend for our students to engage, not to sit back and just sort of watch the class. Engage, ask questions. If you don't understand something, approach your teachers after class. And that's an indicator of a student who really is looking forward to the growth process that we're going to expose our students to. But in the end, it's a beautiful process to see, because you start from a student who sometimes thinks, oh, the admissions office made a mistake. Why am I here? This is too hard. But slowly but surely, you start reaching out, you start making those connections, you start building your network, and that will help you in terms of the future growth, in terms of the academic experience.
Great, thank you. Liz, can I turn to you for a second? Because one of the things I want to make sure our families get a sense of is the unbelievably rich offerings that boarding school offers. compared to going to a day school in your community. I mean, you can go to the nicest school in the middle of New York City. They just don't have the facility. So can you talk a little bit about the clubs, the sports, everything that comes with boarding school education?
So if you can think of it, our schools probably have it in some shape or another, from clubs that are academic in nature to social in nature, to sports that are interscholastic and highly competitive, competing at the top of the league, to more intramural club programs, to community service opportunities. So we want to give students a well-rounded experience. And this may vary from school to school about, for example, the physical fitness requirements, right? Some schools mandate that you do a sport every term. Some schools say it's not a sport, but it should be a fitness class if you don't want to do a sport. Some schools say just get involved after school in some way, whether that's going to be sport or music or theater or dance or community service. But the hardest part students are going to have and all of this is figuring out, what do I do when? How am I going to pick all the things I want to do, and then not overwhelm yourself or overtax yourself with too much on your plate at any given time? And that's the hardest part you're going to face, because there's everything you can think of in terms of sports. You know, I think all our schools offer everything from the, favorite sports of soccer and basketball and baseball to things like crew and lacrosse and track and field to, water polo. I never played lacrosse before I got to boarding school, picked it up my freshman year, played straight through college. So you can try something new in boarding school and not be afraid to try it and work on that skill set and develop that and take it even further than you ever imagined. The arts, you have to nourish the soul, and the arts are a good way to do that. And so all our schools offer everything from drawing, sketching, painting, ceramics, printmaking, photography, digital animation, you name it. So the arts get covered. And then you also have the performing arts. So maybe you're more about performing on stage, or you want to be more behind part of technical theater and the lighting and the backstage and the costume design, and working side by side with people who are professionals in that craft. So it's not just a club theater and you're trying to figure out who can do what. We bring in professionals from other theater companies to work with you and teach you these skill sets to help contribute to the different productions. And some are mini productions or black box theater. Some are huge term of, programs that take all term to put together. And then you have this mecca production that you pack every seat in the house for every single night, because every one of your peers wants to see you make your debut on stage, right? So the hardest part will really be just, which do I pick? Clubs and organizations, students can initiate those. So it's not just things that our teachers and faculty have come up with, but it's really student driven at our schools. And so it could be everything from a multicultural group, affinity groups, to a chess club. It could be a barbecue club, right? That they barbecue every Saturday at a game, and the proceeds that they raise goes to a charity. It could be a service club. It could be, a very specific type of, game that you're into. It's video game or card games. It could be a pancake society. Come get chocolate pancakes every Thursday morning or every Sunday afternoon, and they will not make them plain. If you want plain, you get a square pancake at Loomis. You have to have chocolate chips, just a mandatory thing in the Pancake Society. So the opportunities range from very serious, anything from politics to religion to academic in nature, to very social in nature, and just hanging out and getting to know different people. The hard part will be, which do I do when? And I'll add, the thing that helps is having peers, right, that have been at the school a little bit longer and know you can't be part of 5 clubs at the same time. Probably it might be hard, but 2 or 3 could work. Or having an advisor, a teacher at the school that either lives or works in your dorm, or they're your coach, who can also help you say, okay, what is it that you really want to get involved with? How are you going to stretch yourself? And what are the things you really love to continue to do? And help you navigate that. It doesn't mean that that's your set plan for every year that you're at our schools, but it gives you access to different choices. You may find that, you know what, I thought I was going to like softball. I don't. So that was one term I tried it. I can't throw, I can't catch, I can't hit. I learned something, but I'm destined for the theater. Or maybe you want to, be part of the a cappella group, but you have all these great choices to try things every single term and not be deterred. I can say that we will pack the gym and the theater and the dance studio for our peers. There are super fans for every kind of interest our students have, because we want to be supportive of those passions our students develop.
Great. Lauren, let me just turn to you real quickly. Is there a kind of student you're looking for? And is there somebody who really thrives in boarding school that not necessarily would thrive at a day school where they're living at home?
Great question. First, I would like to say that everyone in the family needs to be on board with boarding school, period. Child needs to be involved, parents need to be involved and on board. If one of those folks are not on board, it is not going, I wouldn't say it's not going to work, but it will be kind of an uphill battle if the child or the parent is not on board. So once you get through that hoop, and I know that Inspiring Young Minds has done and will do a great job at that. So once you get past that, I would say keep an open mind. As I mentioned before, that every school is different. When you go onto campus, have a list. Even prior to going on campus, I will look on the website and also speak with Inspiring Young Minds, just kind of get a sense of like, okay, you know, this is what I'm looking for. Go on the website so that way you can see and be able to ask your questions and write down questions so that way you can get your questions answered. Those questions you need to be able to ask everyone that you can come across, because that's very important. You want to make sure that the delivery is somewhat is the same. So I would say, one, keep an open mind. I would say for students that are that may be quiet or that are maybe a little bit more reserved, there's a school for everyone across the board. So it just really all depends on what you're looking for. If you are looking for a boarding school that's closer to the city, if you're looking for a boarding school that's closer to in the rural area, if you're looking for a school that's particularly for the arts or mainly for sports or for that are across the board, that's very important to know when you're looking at boarding school. I always say to families, if you're interested in boarding school, there is a boarding school for you. It just all depends on what you're looking for at that time. I can speak for Foxcroft. Yes, we want someone that is open. We want someone that's going to be able to, someone who's going to be who can contribute to the community, but also how we can be able to contribute to them, because it's a two-way street. I know that Mr. Turner had mentioned that, you know, it's an extension. We want to know that that we are the extension to the students. So with the parents' involvement as well as the school's involvement, we want to be able to pour in into the student. And then also I would say that for students who may say, hey, I can see myself going to X college and this is what I want to do, that's great. But then also keeping in mind that that may change, as we've kind of echoed throughout the time, right? You may go in and say, you know what, I want to become an artist and I want to go to SCAD, which is the Savannah College of Art Design. But then when you leave, by the time you graduate, you're like, you know what, no, I actually want to go to engineering school, and they end up going to engineering school. So being able to have that flexibility. I would say by the time your child starts boarding school, whether that be junior boarding school or high school, they're going to leave as a totally different person when they graduate. So I know across a lot of different areas, but that's what we're looking for. We're looking for those students that are motivated. We're looking for students that want to have an open mind and that want to seek change, and ensuring that they are set up for success and they want to be set up for success across the board.
Great. Carrie, I think it's about 4 o'clock. And so let me turn to you and let's open up the panel and open up the questions to our guests here and see if they have any questions.
Thank you so much, Kurt. We do have quite a few questions that's coming in, so I'm going to do my best to try to cover as many as we can.
Carrie,
in the time allotted. Yes.
Can I just interject for a minute? I just wanted to introduce one of our alum, Tiffany McGee. She just joined us, and she's a very special young lady. Tiffany, are you there? Can you
Yeah,
just
I'm
say
right
a
here.
few words and introduce yourself?
Hello, my name is Tiffany McGee. For starters, I did public school until I met Mr. Lewis Moore and Mark Chung. They completely changed my life. I will forever be grateful. I went to a Brooklyn public school as well, Prospect Heights by Eastern Parkway. My senior year, I went to Kent Hill, and then I did a post-grad year for Mercersburg, and right now I'm at Canisius College for basketball. What they did, they had like kids that play sports and stuff. They did a showcase and you talk to other schools. Actually, I even talked to Loomis, and from there you apply. And one thing I will say is when they say they will help with the financial part, they definitely will. There's truth behind those words for a fact. Me, because when I first went to Kent Hill, all the years of school was in public school and, in Brooklyn. So when I first went, I think the most important part is to go in with an open mindset and just take everything in, like take it as a learning experience. I was just so excited because I was yearning for something new. At Prospect, I felt like I wasn't being pushed. I wasn't being challenged. I feel like, mentally I wasn't being stimulated or anything. When you go away to boarding school, there's so many different activities, so many different type of classes, and just so many different type of people. And like, if you go in with a closed off mindset, you're not going to get as much as you can from it. Another thing I will say, like, even though it's boarding school, it's still a high school. My number one thing that I told myself when I went in, no matter what, like, express yourself. Don't be scared to express yourself. And you're among other young people that are also scared to express themselves and sometimes don't know how to, portray that. But don't be scared to express yourself. When you do that, you're gonna find friends for a lifetime. I'm still in contact with friends from Kent Hill. I went there 3 years ago. I still took to my Mercersburg friends. We FaceTime all the time. They actually saw me not too long ago, last Christmas, paid money to come see me. Like, that's how close we are. The classes, I don't know if you guys talk about the classes, but at Prospect, it was about 26 kids. At Mercersburg and Kent Hill was about 12 to 15 tops. So you have no choice but to really learn. One thing I will say is I went in thinking that, because at Prospect, whatever, I'm used to like teachers not really caring, not really being invested. So I kind of went in, I had to take everything in on my own. Like, I don't need help, like whatever. But it's a completely different environment, more positive. There's teachers that live on campus with you. They want to see you succeed. They genuinely want a good name for the school. So they're there to help you. Math teachers, they will put in extra time to help you. You even have other students, if you feel uncomfortable with a teacher, that will help you. So just be open to that. And with the time management, that was one thing I wasn't really good at, but you have no choice. And I would take the bus to school. I'm living on campus now. So it's like, I kind of want to get up early. I want to see my friends. I want to do it. Like, and it's not really, I don't know where everyone is right now, but it's not really like, oh, I don't think I can. I don't think I'm smart enough. Or, I think a lot of people have like this fighter in us, or like really, want something more. It's just, you have to be exposed to it. And I think going to boarding school, you will definitely be exposed to it. Sometimes you just need like a little push. You need to see it to really want it. I think that's about it. Another thing is, when it comes down to taking care of yourself, it's not just doing laundry. It's not just saving money. Like, when you're away on your own, like, you start to like really focus on how you feel. How does this person make you feel? Like, how does this activity make you feel? How does this class make you feel? Like, you are genuinely finding yourself. You're finding the type of people you like. You're finding what you appreciate in a person. You're finding what you appreciate in yourself. You're strengthening characteristics. You're becoming a leader. You're engaging more in class. You're paying attention. I don't know, but I will forever be grateful for this organization. Mr. Moore and Mr. Chung can tell you the first chunk of schools I applied to, I did not get in, but they were like, yo, keep going. Even when I wanted to give up, I swear I wanted to give up. I promise you I did. They said, keep going. I kept going. I ended up at Kent Hill. At first, they didn't release the financial aid package. There's 3 other students that they were choosing from. Mark Chung worked with them. 2 weeks before moving day, in August, 2 weeks before it, they said, yo, you got the financial aid package, I'm going, and I went. So I'm forever grateful for this organization. Thank you so much. I don't know, that's all I had to say. Also, like, you know, you start eating healthier, the food is better. It's just you start taking care of yourself in so many ways, and you start to have fun with it. I had fun.
Thank you.
That.
Thank you very much, Tiffany. Carrie?
Yes, thank you guys. Thank you, Tiffany, so much for sharing that experience. I'm sure the parents and the kids that are on the call are happy to hear. So we have quite a few questions that came in, and I'll start off with Max for Loomis, for Liz. Max says, is there a cooking club at your school? I didn't see one on the website. And if there isn't, are the kids able to start their own club?
Yeah, so we don't have a cooking club that I'm aware of in the last year. We have the Pancake Society. Like I said, pancakes every Sunday, chocolate chip. Pretty good. We also have the barbecue club, so they grill any kind of combination of burger, double cheeseburger, messy hot dog, anything you want. They're going to put on that grill and make, you know, you can come up with any kind of combination of things and they'll cook it for you. You can create a club organization yourself. You have to submit a proposal. You have to submit the expectation of that club. You know, how often will you meet? Who's it for? Do you need money? How you know, what will you do with that money if you are raising money, and things like that. So you can start a club fairly easily. We definitely see submissions, not me personally, but the activities directors see submissions every year. And the nice thing is, if you don't want to make a club, what I've seen in the dorms is groups of students use the kitchens in all the dorms. And I've seen students, you know, they all go to the grocery store together, and one friend is responsible for like the entree, and one's responsible for the dessert, one's the appetizer, and they all collaborate and meet in the kitchen, and they cook it together and they eat together. And I've seen that happening for the last couple of years with a variety of groups of friends and across all the different dorms. So every dorm has a fully functioning kitchen. The big thing is that whatever mess you make sure you clean it up, because I'm not cleaning up after you. So you can definitely continue to cook. You can teach people how to cook. If they don't know how, you can learn to cook from others. I learned to make macaroni and cheese and double chocolate chip brownies in boarding school in my dorm head's apartment, because she was like, have at it, just clean up. I'm a very good brownie maker.
Nice. Very nice. Thank you so much, Liz. Let's see. Justin had a question. How do these schools take into account kids with learning disabilities for any schools? I'll turn to Bill, Trinity Pauling.
Yes, I think, you know, again, that's part of the process that Inspiring Young Minds can help you with, is identifying schools that do have, I'll call it extra support. I mean, we're all great at individual work with teachers, because most of the teachers live on campus. Like for Trinity Pauling, 95% live on campus. So the opportunity to see teachers either in a classroom, in their houses or whatever is truly one of the most amazing things about boarding school. You know, we're open 24/7. We never close. That's the kind of attitude you have. But again, with Mark and the gang helping you to be able to figure out, okay, which schools have specific programs. Is there a program for maybe somebody who's dyslexic? Is there a program with somebody who has executive functioning issues? Is your learning disability is such that, you know, certain schools will be probably crossed off your list and certain schools will be added to your list? Inspiring Young Minds can help you with that. So that's the short answer is yes. Schools do have opportunities to help students with learning issues. It just depends on your issue. The main thing to do if you have learning issues is to get as much information as you can. A psychoeducational evaluation can be done either privately or through the school systems of where you live. And that information can be sent in, should be sent in as part of the application process to determine whether the school you're applying for has programs that can support you.
Thank you so much for that answer, Bill. And this next question is also for you, Bill, so stay tuned. This question says, does your school prioritize certain areas of study over others? For example, math, STEM, the arts, or athletics?
No, to answer that our school does not. It is a very even keeled across the board kind of school, which again, we sit around maybe privately. I might tell you there's some teachers that I think are better than others, and maybe that makes that program a little bit better than others. But I think for the most part, it's across the board, very even keeled. Being in an all boys school. I would say probably athletics is something that's important at a place like Trinity Pauling, but the non-athletic boy can still find success and be accepted and find things to do. And again, like some of the panels talked about, you've got activities for almost everything you need. You've got big time sports where kids are going to go off to college, and then you have JV and third levels for kids that just enjoy playing. And so our school is pretty much even keel across the board. We don't have a STEM program. That's one thing we don't have.
Thank you so much. Mr. Jorge from Exeter, can you describe a typical day at Exeter? And another question was a little bit more in depth about the admissions process.
Certainly. So a typical day at Exeter starts at 8 o'clock in the morning. We have 8 formats scheduled throughout the day. And so each format is around 50 minutes each, sometimes depending on the day, maybe a little bit longer. So 5 of those 8 formats are, or possibly 4, depending on the classes you're taking, are scheduled for classes. 1 or 2 of those formats are free periods for you to possibly go back to your dorm, catch up on some work, meet with a teacher. And then 2 of those formats are scheduled for physical education and in varsity or JV team competitions and practices. And so the schedule facilitates students to be able to participate in music, classes, and athletics all at the same time. And they also accommodates an assembly program. And so every week we bring in 2 notable speakers to address campus and address different issues that are important for our community. And then we utilize that as a building block for conversations in our classes and with advising groups. And so typically that's a regular day. Those 8 formats go from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., but that includes physical education. Then in the evenings after dinner, around dinner time, you have times for clubs and different activities. We offer over 100 different clubs and organizations. So they're coming together to meet in the evenings. And then around 8 o'clock, you have check-in time. And so that's when you go back to your dorm, you start doing your work. And around 10 o'clock in the dorm, some dorms have dorm grills, so you may go around, hang around with some friends, get some food at the grill in the dorm, and then by 11 o'clock it's lights out for the 9th and 10th graders, and for 11th and 12th graders, they're managing their time on their own. But that's what a typical day looks like for a student at Exeter. And now regarding the admissions question, we have a holistic admissions review process. So many families ask about grades on tests, and so if we have a particular range for scores that we look at, we're going to look at testing, keeping in mind where the student is coming from, and the school where the student is coming from. We're also looking at teacher recommendations, and that is a very important part of the application process. We're looking at essays, we're looking at your parent statement, an interview as well. And so we have a committee of different teachers and admissions officers who will review that file and then come together and talk about the class and shaping the class in the spring time. And so if you get the application completed by January 15th, by March 10th, you will receive a decision from our office.
Thank you so much, Naeem.
Thank you.
Next question, we'll turn to Lauren. Lauren, how does your school support new students arriving on campus, both academically and socially?
Mhm. Great question. So with our students, actually, I'm gonna do pre-COVID and I'm gonna do now because the way that it is very different. So for pre-COVID, we have a month, so it's about 4 to 5 weeks where we have everyone on campus, kind of like an orientation period for both of our boarders as well as our day students. So that way it's building camaraderie and community. And there is a kind of an orientation period for the first 2 days, and then classes start. Prior to classes starting, I love to tell the story. It's called sunrise service. Don't worry, you're not getting up at 6 a.m. or 6:30. You're actually starting the day at like 8 o'clock. And there is it's one of our traditions here at Foxcroft. And there is a song that we sing. And then after that time, what we call the old girls, which is our returning students, they run to the dining hall to choose a seat for their new girl, which is a new student. And there is this huge spread of food, like breakfast food. So like make your own donuts and eggs and pancakes and waffles, just muffins, anything that you can think of, it's there. And of course, bringing that Southern flair. I'm sorry, I love food. It just gets me excited. So that's one of our many traditions here at Foxcroft. Also, this is a good time to meet with your advisor. Also, a good time to kind of ease into kind of like the academic transition with your teachers. Also, during that time, there's an opportunity to meet with your dorm parents. We actually have what we call with our student leaders in the dorms is what we call whips, which is our juniors, and then prefects, which is our seniors. So having the dorm team meetings every day for like the first couple of weeks, so that way the girls can be able to get acclimated, because at the end of the day, everyone is starting a year brand new, whether that be you're returning or whether it be you are a new student. So that is pre-COVID in terms with like all the students. With that being said, the reason why I am switching over, because with pre-COVID, we have what we call sleeping porches. Again, it's a term that we've used. You're not sleeping outside on the porch. It's actually, it's heat and central air. But we definitely, with our founder, pride sleep and the importance of sleep. So think of, if you're going into a dorm, you have your dresser, you have your closet space, and you have your desk. But for us, the beds are actually in a separate space. So if you've ever been to camp, or if you think of like a large room, like going down the hallway, the beds are bunked. And the beds are kind of aligned. It is technology free, because again, we like to keep that the importance of sleep. The good thing is, the trade-off is that you're not sharing a bathroom with 15 or 20 other girls. You're actually sharing a room with 2 or 3 other girls in your pod space. Okay. So that's kind of like a trade-off. Now, going into us starting school October 3rd, we know that we can't accommodate all of those girls in that sleeping porch. So we're actually going to have the beds in the rooms, and looking at smaller pods when it comes to that living space. Still being able to have that transition, so that quarantine period, but then also easing that transition. So meeting with the advisors, making sure that the girls are acclimated socially, emotionally as well, and making sure that they're set up for success as well as in a dorm. So very similar to pre-COVID and post-COVID, but we also want to make sure as far as with that boarding piece to be addressed in that sleeping space, because I know families are like, wait a minute, you have these sleeping porches, you have like 15, 20 girls in these spaces, what are you doing? That's what we're doing. So within that time frame, By 5 weeks or so, your students, especially with our girls, they have transitioned into the school. With that being said, we also have a guidance team. I'm actually a part of the guidance team, and we meet and talk about all the girls at our school and during our meeting, making sure that the girls are have logged into My Foxcroft, which is the back end of our website, making sure that that they have like certain medications that they need if possible. So within that guidance team, it's the assistant head of school, the nurse, school counselor, the dean of students, the assistant dean of students, as well as myself. So it's a rounded out team. So like I mentioned before, by the end of those 5 weeks, we know that the girls are set up for success, and that for girls that need a little bit of a challenge or need a little bit of push, then we have the appropriate people to make sure that they are acclimated.
Great, thank you so much. Next, let's see, this would be for Bill. So are there any engineering programs at your school? And I'm
no.
sorry, one second part of that, is there a required check-in and out time of the dorms?
We don't have a engineering program at Trinity Pauling. But, you know, I think there is opportunities to do something along those lines through the robotics club that we offer, or maybe even it could be like a lot of schools, we offer a ton of clubs. And if somebody wants to come in and start something, you know, all they need is a couple of friends and a teacher to be an advisor, and you can do that. So we don't have specific engineering at Trinity Pauling. You know, our academics is pretty much all kind of broad, very traditional kind of academic. We do have advanced placement, but we don't have any engineering. And the second question was about check-in. Was that right?
Check-ins to dorms, yeah.
Yeah, we're very similar to some of the other schools. Our study hall runs from 8 to 9:30. Once 9:30 comes, you can go outside, go to what we call our cave, which is our large student lounge with big screen TVs, and you know, you play pool, you know, ping pong, and got couches and chairs, and there's a snack bar there. You can have food there. Each dorm has their own lounge, so you can hang out with your friends, hook up an Xbox, or catch the end of a game if you want to, or a movie. And then everybody's back into the dorms based on grades. So, you know, your freshmen and sophomores are back in there, or your freshmen are back in the dorms by 10, and then it's 10:30 sophomores, and 11 o'clock for everyone else, juniors, seniors, and postgraduates. And then lights out for everyone is the 11 o'clock time, with the seniors and postgraduates not adhering to a strict lights out policy. But again, you know, if they're staying up late doing what they're not supposed to do, then something's going to happen. But we had definitely do our check-ins in the evening based on grades.
Thank you so much, Bill. Liz, we're coming back, circling back to you. I understand that Loomis is a very academic, challenging school, but how can students there deal with stress and pressure?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's not an unnatural thing to feel stressed sometimes, right? Not just about school, but sometimes about life. And for Loomis, we talk a lot about being your best self and developing your best self, and knowing that if you can go to bed every night saying that I gave my best effort in the things that I did today, it's going to look different from day to day, but you have to just be willing to understand that that's okay. That's part of the journey. That's part of the process. It's part of the experience of your growth. Think about how diamonds are formed. It's under pressure, right? And so sometimes you have to have a little bit of pressure to help you figure out which road to take, which path to take in your learning, and how to address challenges, whether they be academically, it's a paper you're stuck on, the opening statement, you don't know how to go with that, and so you go to the writing studio for help. Maybe you need help on a science lab, so you go to your teacher down the hall in the dorm at 9 o'clock at night because they're on duty and they can help you with that lab report. So no person, no student, and I think my peers from the other schools can attest to this, no student is expected to accomplish success independently. We know that sometimes you're going to be really confident in some parts of your life, and, you know, academically speaking, and other parts you're like, I just don't get it. Math for me was that thing. I just could not grasp math quickly. It took me a long time and many, many meetings with my favorite math teachers, there are many of them, over the course of 4 years to feel confident in math. It wasn't that I couldn't do it, it was building my confidence in that field. I firmly believe that if you are enrolled at our school, it's because, and at Exeter and Foxcroft and TP, it's because we believe you can be successful and you can define success how you choose, but we know you can find success in the classroom. You have to use the resources. You have to seek help. We also reach out. We don't let you have to be always the instigator of wanting to ask for help. We as teachers say, how can I help you? That seems like a tough concept for you. Know that I'm on duty every night in X dorm, or we can have office hours here. We can talk. We want to see you succeed. We're not out to stump you and say, how I'm going to get them this time on this test. No one's going to pass. The goal is to help you find success. Yes, you're going to have some bad days. Yes, you're going to have maybe a low grade you weren't expecting. But you have to understand that sometimes in that failure, that setback, that's how you learn more about yourself and the resilience that you have and the growth that you make. So it's normal, it's healthy, there are outlets for you. Sometimes it's a matter of taking a good, just primal scream in your pillow. Sometimes it's talking to your advisor or older students that have already gone through that year. So our juniors, it's a big year for juniors every year that they have to balance a demanding course load with also thinking about the next step. Our seniors just went through that a year ago, right? So they are great role models for our juniors entering a big year. Our freshmen are new, right? And that comes with pressure and stress and anxiety about, how's it gonna be? Am I gonna fit in? What's the homework gonna be like? Is it gonna be okay? Every student has, dorm buddies in the dorm to help you acclimate to life in the dorm. We focus on the relationship building so that you have these outlets to help you manage those stressful days. Listen, and parents, you can attest to this. Every child wears their emotions on their face, right? So when your kid is not doing well by just the look on their face or the tone in their voice. Same thing, your children are surrounded by adults who know how to read that body language of your child and to say, hey, you seem a little bit down, what's going on, how can I help? If it's something beyond that, right, all our schools provide counseling services. So our health center is both a service for obviously the medical side, but also the social emotional wellness side. And so we have a counseling center that's open 24 hours a day. We have counselors on call at night, but we also have them manning office hours during the day. So that sometimes it's more about managing of just the day-to-day planning of your day. Maybe it's more about your plan book. Other times it's more about just, I feel stressed, I don't know how to breathe through it. Is it meditation that I need? Is it a good cry that I need? Is it just a good plan that I need? But you're never gonna have to go through those stresses, those struggles, those pressures alone. And so just know that we want to see you be happy. We want to see you be successful. We want to help you reach your goals. And sometimes having a conversation, right? Whether it's a professional person or an advisor or a friend can really help you navigate that.
Thank you so much, Liz. So we have time for one more question, guys, and then we're gonna wrap it up. And this question would be for Mr. Jorge. Is it harder to transfer into boarding school from a higher grade, or would it be considered the same as entering into your freshman year?
That's a really great question. So we have students entering all different grades from 9th through 12th grade and postgraduate year. The number of students who transition in each grade, though, is diminished each year. So while you typically have close to 200 students for the 9th grade, you're looking for an additional 60 for 10th grade, an additional 30 for 11th and 12th grade. Now, in terms of the transition, for 9th graders, we offer a pass-fail trimester when they arrive on campus. And so when they start their time in September, their grades will not be recorded on their transcripts. They're receiving their grades in their class, but really we're trying to make sure that they're building strong social connections, ask for help, and getting adjusted to the transition because we have students from so many different schools. At the same time, with the older grades, you're still coming in with a cohort. and your advisors and your teachers will know that you are a new student to the academy. And so they will be aware of that. They will be checking in with you to make sure that you are transitioning, and as well as the dorm faculty will be aware of that. And because we have a vertical housing system, you will have the chance to connect with older students, younger students, and they will also help with the transition if you are an older student. And so while I think, it's easier to transition as a ninth grader, many students will transition in 10th, 11th, and 12th grade, and they will be successful in that process. And as a school, we do our best to support our students in that transition. And we have different specialists and deans that can come in if there's any situations that warrant some additional help.
Thank you so much. So guys, we're running out of time. So I've added all of the important resources in our chat box. If you need additional, you can reach, if you have additional questions, you can reach out directly to the panelists. Their information can be found in the chat. And I'll turn it over to Mark. Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie. Okay, you guys are hearing me, right? Thank you very much again, Carrie. I just wanted to add something to what the last question was regarding the entry points. I think it's very important to know that there are different entry points. I think specifically what that question was being asked from was probably from one of our junior boarding school kids. So there's a few junior boarding school, current IYM junior boarding schools kids here. If you guys can just say hi, Isaiah, Kiara, Noble. If I miss anyone, just say hi. So they actually went to junior boarding schools and they entered at 8th grade. They're going to spend 2 years there. They're going to be applying out from as ninth graders to some of these schools that are in the panel here. So as Carrie said, if you guys, I know you guys may have a lot of questions, please feel free to reach out to the schools directly. And you can also reach out to Carrie and I and some of the other panelists, and we will be happy to help you to answer some of your questions. In regards to moving forward in this application process, please visit our website with the inspiringyoungminds.org, and the application there, you'll see a button for the IYM Prep Scholar application. You can click on that and you can begin the process. I would like to thank our panelists, especially our schools, what I would normally say, thank you for traveling to New York City. Well, thank you for stepping out of your bedroom to your office. It was a pleasure seeing you guys. I know this is a challenging time, but it was so good to see you guys face to face via Zoom. Thank you again for all the other panelists, students, parents, and all the attendees. I know you guys have come from afar, and shout out to my people in Puerto Rico, and I see Toronto, and so forth. And thank you again. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Thanks,
Good
guys.
night. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Good job, Mark.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Good job, everyone. Bye, Liz. Go Loomis.
Bye, Alec. Bye. Bye, Naheen.
Okay, you can go.
Great seeing you.
Okay.
Bye, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thanks again, guys.
Thanks, Mark.
All right. Good night, everyone.
Good night.